All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're doing a complete step-by-step teardown of a 12-week financial sprint that honestly, absolutely blew my mind. We're going to separate the basic financial scaffolding, those standard things everyone always tells you to do, from the true wealth multipliers that actually generate life-changing money. So if you want to know exactly what actions build real wealth and which ones are just the necessary groundwork, well, you are definitely in the right place.
I want to tease the massive stakes of this explainer right out of the gate here. $1.49 million. That's the 30-year trajectory that an incredibly average guy unlocked in just 90 days. And here's the absolute kicker. He did it by relying on math that totally defies conventional wisdom. We're going to break down exactly how he achieved this trajectory week by week.
To really wrap our heads around how powerful this 90-day reset is, we need to ground ourselves in the relatable reality of our case study. Let's talk about David. He's starting out with an incredibly average salary of $65,000 a year. He's got $5,000 in savings and he's carrying $7,200 in credit card debt. His starting net worth? A negative $2,200. He literally represents the exact financial starting line of the average American. And over the next 12 weeks, he takes one specific action per week to completely flip his script.
Okay, let's dive right into phase 1, the foundation.
It is so important to understand right up front that these first 4 weeks, they don't actually build wealth directly. They're just laying the vital groundwork that makes the rest of the plan actually function. So here's a rapid-fire summary. Week 1 is the audit, basically tracking 3 months of expenses to find your blind spots. David realized he didn't really have a spending problem, he had an awareness problem. Week 2 is the trim, cutting discretionary spending by 10 to 30%. Week 3 introduces automation, which takes the human element completely out of saving. And Week 4 aggressively attacks that high-interest debt. Let's look a bit closer at why this specific sequence matters so much.
Let's talk about Week 2's trim and why conventional advice gets it so incredibly wrong. You've definitely heard the old saying, right? A dollar saved is a dollar earned. Well, the math says otherwise. By cutting some food delivery and negotiating some bills, David freed up $400 a month. But a dollar saved and just left sitting in a checking account is still just a dollar. Over 30 years, that $400 a month grows to just $144,000. But if that exact same $400 is invested in the S&P 500 at a historical 8% average, it grows to $596,000. Same trim, same effort, quadruple the result. The trim is literally only half the equation.
But you can't get to that massive investment number without Week 3, which is automation. This is the true multiplier that turns the previous week's budget cuts into actual wealth. By opening a high-yield savings account offering between 3.8 and 4%, David gets free interest. But more importantly, setting up automatic transfers literally doubles the average savings rate. Why? Because without automation, that $400 David freed up in Week 2, it'll just leak right back into his daily spending within 90 days. Lifestyle creep is a very real thing. Automation prevents those freed-up dollars from simply evaporating into thin air.
Which brings us to Week 4, and honestly, it's time to debunk a huge myth. There's this super popular argument out there saying you should invest your money before paying off high-interest credit cards. Well, the math proves this is terribly wrong. The stock market averages 8 to 10% a year, but the average credit card APR, it's over 21%. Paying off a credit card is a guaranteed 21% return. David spent literally just 5 minutes on the phone with his credit card company, lowered his APR from 24% down to 19%, and boosted his minimum payment by $75 a month. That one simple move saved him nearly $1,900 in interest and shaved off 8 months of payments.
Boom.
Foundation is officially set.
All right, moving on to phase 2, building wealth.
Now, this is where the heavy-hitting financial multipliers are finally unleashed. The scaffolding is up, the leaks are plugged, and now we start building the systems that will generate that $1.4 million trajectory. So what does this wealth-building phase actually look like? First, in Week 5, we secure a fast starter emergency fund. Week 6 initiates massive compounding in the stock market. Week 7 focuses on raising the income ceiling. And Week 8 leverages a brilliantly simple psychological trick, writing down specific targets. Let's break down the sheer power of these 4 weeks.
In Week 5, David builds a fast $1,000 buffer. Now, I know financial factions argue endlessly over emergency fund sizes. Some folks say you need 6 months of expenses, others say skip it entirely and just invest. But here's the stark reality. 59% of Americans cannot currently afford a $1,000 emergency. They're literally one flat tire away from spiraling into debt. A $1,000 cushion actually covers 80% of common unexpected expenses. By selling an old laptop and a guitar, David hit this goal in just 11 days. It is absolutely crucial as a safety net that protects the entire rest of the plan. Now, what's really interesting here is that before David even looks at the open market, he executes the single best move in personal finance, capturing the 401k employer match. Seriously, if your employer offers a match, it is an instant 100% return on your invested dollars, period. By capturing his company's 4% match, David nets a free $2,600 a year on his $65K salary. There is absolutely no other investment in the world that comes close to a guaranteed 100% return.
And then we hit the absolute climax of the entire plan. Week 6, investing in the S&P 500. This, right here, is the visual power of compounding. If David invests $100 a month for 30 years, he gets $149,000. $500 gets him $745,000, and $1,000 a month, that is how you cross that $1.49 million finish line. And the secret ingredient here is time. The first 10 years, they feel incredibly slow. The second 10 years feel okay, but the true wealth explosion happens in that third decade. This week alone builds the vast bulk of David's future wealth. Basically, every other week is just preparing for this one or protecting it.
But then week 7 brings in the other massive multiplier, and that's income. Think about it. Cutting expenses has a hard floor. You obviously can't cut below zero. But income has no ceiling. David builds a simple one-page document of his achievements and asks for a raise. He gets 7%, which works out to $4,550 more a year. If he takes that single raise and invests it, instead of just absorbing it into his lifestyle, over 30 years it generates over $500,000. Crazy, right? One conversation, one ask, over $565,000 generated. Week 8 seems almost too simple, but it is backed by hard science. David writes down a highly specific goal, to have $10,000 invested and 0 credit card debt by the end of the year, and he texts it to his sister. Why? Because hard data from Dr. Gail Matthews at Dominican University proves that people who write down their goals and actually share them are 42% more likely to achieve them. It is literally a 5-minute action that dramatically increases the success rate of the entire 90-day plan.
Okay, bringing it home with Phase 3, Plan Optimization.
We have officially reached the final 30 days. This last stretch focuses entirely on protecting those newly built systems so you don't just drift back to your old habits. These optimization weeks are all about discipline and tracking. Week 9 is the credit card grocery test. Week 10 is tracking the net worth curve. Week 11 is the re-audit to plug any new spending leaks. And Week 12 is setting long-term calendar reminders. Let's look at exactly how these protective mechanisms function.
And this brilliantly illustrates a massive truth about personal finance. Credit cards aren't inherently good or evil. They're just a behavioral discipline test. In Week 9, David uses his card for groceries only, paying it off in full every single month. If he passes this test, the card stays, helping him build a stellar credit score and earn rewards that can easily yield $15,000 to $30,000 in lifetime savings. If he fails, he switches to debit. It's not a moral failure at all, it's just data telling you what works for your brain.
Week 10 introduces the ultimate metric, net worth. You know, a lot of people think tracking net worth is just a thing for the rich. It is the exact opposite. It's the absolutely essential tool for measuring the upward slope of a financial plan. Without tracking it, you honestly don't know if your plan is actually working. By week 10, David's net worth has gone from a negative $2,200 to a positive $4,800. Seeing that upward curve, it is the ultimate motivation to just keep going.
By week 12, it's time for the ultimate commitment device. David maps out his specific milestones: $10K invested in year 1, $75K in year 5, and $250,000 net worth by year 10. But more importantly, he sets quarterly calendar reviews. Because the harsh truth is, without a review cadence, almost everyone drifts right back to their baseline within a year. These simple check-ins completely prevent that drift and keep the systems humming for the next 30 years.
So the crucial point I want you to take away is this. You don't need to be absolutely perfect across all 12 weeks of this plan. You just need excellence on the 3 massive wealth multipliers. Week 6, investing in the S&P 500. Week 7, increasing your income. And Week 3, automating those systems so they just happen without your active effort. If you nail those 3 multipliers and just stay reasonably consistent on the rest of the scaffolding, the math literally just takes over.
Which leaves us with the ultimate question. Are your finances right now built on just scaffolding, or are you actively using these multipliers? The real beauty of this 90-day reset is that the blueprint is entirely in your hands. I challenge you to look at your own systems this week. Find those leaks, set up that automation, and initiate your own multipliers. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I seriously can't wait to see you apply this to your own life.